All right. Hey, C. Mike, welcome to the Corridor Podcast.
Hey.
Welcome back.
You guys changed the studio. It looks totally different.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Our studio has a bunch of really unique houses all over the
It's very
place.
boxy.
We have a place in the studio called Memory Lane, apparently, except we reversed all the letters. It was a weird printing mistake.
Yeah. Oh, is this showing backwards for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so funny
Even more
because
like
so I spent 2 minutes bringing it into editor and reversing it so I could bring it in so you guys could read it. I should have kept my original.
at first glance, I thought it was Russian.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So,
Funny.
C. Mike, how you been?
Oh man, I've been super relaxed, and I've been doubling down on Dungeons and Dragons and finding myself. That's, I think, the biggest thing, and it's been intense.
Yeah. I mean, you did something that's very challenging to do, which is to make the leap from stability to chaos with the intent of pursuing personal desires and fulfillment. And I'm hoping that you'll share a little bit of your experiences with us and what brought you to that point and like what you've learned about yourself in terms of and from doing that and all the things that come with it. So yeah. I mean, pretty much everyone listening to this podcast, I'm sure they know who you are. But if they don't, I mean, I should let you introduce yourself.
So I'm Carmichael. I used to be the t-shirt guy who packed the t-shirts for Stress Level Zero and Corridor Digital, and then
that guy.
yeah. I had to bring the shirts to the mailbox, and then one day I was allowed to edit some behind the scenes stuff, and then I became a showrunner of a vlog called Corridor Crew. And then Nick hopped on and we got married and we had to raise a child with Uncle Nico and Sam.
It's Grandpa Nico, actually.
Grandpa Nico, Grandpa Sam.
Well, Uncle Jake, then.
Uncle Jake.
Yeah. And then about a year ago this time, you departed ways with Corridor and started pursuing your own endeavors, primarily the Dungeons and Dragons channel, Fables of Refuge, right?
Yeah, it's Fables now.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, I was going to just be Fables, but I was like, oh, we should just market it off the main show that we're trying to make, and then once I can start putting more stuff on there, I'll take off Refuge. Yeah, it's a mixed bag on how the decision got made on my part. And then when I discovered D&D, I got reconnected with my childhood, something that a lot of adults seek, and my heart just like started to glow and warm up. It was like the exact feeling whenever my dad walked me through the gates of the Renaissance Fair. And I was
nice.
As an adult, I never had that feeling until I started playing D&D, and I was like, this is important, and I can't let this go. And then that brought up the reminder of what I've been pursuing since, I don't know, middle school, so like 7th grade. And what I've let go to pursue it, which is filmmaking. And then there was a conflict of interest in me. Like, all I did was focus on filmmaking, nothing else. I would skip lunches at school. I would stay late, get in there early, and just focus on filmmaking, nothing else. I actually abandoned a lot of friendships and social connections just to stay on the path of filmmaking. It's like, how do I make movies? How do I do that well? And how can I know how to do it? Like, all that knowledge, I just want it. And I landed the fucking dream job, and I got a Corridor, and I was like, I fucking did it.
It wasn't the dream job, but when you started, it wasn't the dream job because there wasn't a job.
No, it was not. But I was working for the guys that I admire. And I was like, I mean, that's the next step. Like, when I was at film school, when I got to LA in 2012, two things were always in my mind. One, podcasts are going to replace radio. Two, it doesn't make sense what teachers are teaching me, because it's like during the day I'm learning studio filmmaking, and at night I'm watching Corridor Digital and Freddie W. And then the school would say, no, what they're doing is bad and wrong. And then I was like, I disagree. And
Was it like literally them saying that, or was it just kind of like a?
There was a couple teachers who were like there as part-time between like directing gigs or producing gigs, that they're like, yeah, I can't wait to see what these people get to do in the long run. But then the majority of them who were like full-time teachers at a film school were like, no, they're doing it wrong. Yeah, of course they are.
There's no film in their camera.
There's the whole crew.
They shoot so much. You know the developing lab budget for that?
Yeah.
They lack the organic nature of film. It's just there's nothing of the green.
Where's the video village?
Texture.
Where's the video village?
I remember we out of pocket as students had to pay for our own film because they wanted, like, the first 3 things we shoot were on actual film.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll do like the first one and the second one. The second one I just shot on whatever leftover film I had. But the third one was like, I don't have this money. But I knew someone with a DSLR. And I was like, can I just shoot on the DSLR? No, that's not film. But then I showed them like the Philip Bloom footage from the ranch and stuff. I'm like, it kind of looks like film to me.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I got to work with you guys after working at a Cloud Imperium, I think it's called. Which
Fun.
is
You guys that make Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it was like, I think it was Jake who called me up and was like, hey, we got a gig for a week to do Mordor. And there's no pay, but we can make sure you're fed and you got a place to sleep. I turned to my boss like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week. And that began the road of me getting fired and then showing up at corridors like, hey, guys, I got to need a job. Come on in. Pack some shirts.
Yeah. So you went from, being a guy helping out around the studio, kind of like helping Jake take care of some work, to, obviously shore running the entire Corridor Crew channel. And, at least like when my dad would talk to me about like getting a job and stuff like that, he was like, when you put yourself in a position where people start coming to you to get something done, you soon find yourself in a position of leadership where people are coming to you to get stuff done. So just be that person and give it time. And in time, you'll find yourself in those positions that you want to be in. And, I feel like it's kind of what you ended up just doing, where you're like, all right, I'm just going to start doing work. And then when I get the opportunities, I'm going to do them and keep cranking on them. But what was that evolution like for you? Like, from your point of view, how did you get from a guy packing t-shirts to a guy who's, inventing formats and making videos that millions of people are watching?
It has to be said, like, without Nick's help, the channel wouldn't have become what it is. I have to also preference that back, like, a big part of when I left is like working on myself and then looking at my state of mind through that process too. And there was a lot of like too much pride, like almost like I deserved, because I knew I put so much energy in knowing so much about filmmaking. Whenever I wasn't doing filmmaking, I felt like I deserved to do filmmaking. Why am I doing this? But then often I got put in my place whenever like you guys try to put me in the hot seat and I froze. and it's just like, and it's just, I wasn't humble enough back then. But then I was also hungry enough to constantly like try to achieve a new thing. I remember I presented the idea to both you and Sam, the idea of like, hey, the Sam and Nico channel should have like an opening logo. And I really like the idea of the t-shirt hole in the chest. And I was like, it should be animated some way. And I was like, could we get an animator to do that? And Nico, you just straight up said, no, we can't afford that. And I just stood there for like a half a second. I was like, okay. And I went to my computer, and for the next 6 days, I learned how to do it.
Yeah.
And then the whole vlog spawned out of that one intro.
And I mean, it turned out really well. Too.
Like,
It was sweet.
Yeah.
And it just got faster and faster. Like, what sucked was it was a final JPEG that I had to animate.
Just go and get a high-res picture of the shirt and work from that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember thoughts of just like, I think, because when I started shooting, my idea was I should make the better version of what you guys are already doing with BTS, which is covering the action, getting what you guys have to say on set, and then essentially recapping some ideas in an interview, and then try to make those all look. Sorry?
Yeah, we were basically doing our version of DVD behind the scenes.
And then it was just like, take the next, like, okay, how does this get better? How does this get better? And it was getting really good. And then it took its biggest leap when Nico, you were like, let's do a vlog.
I think that's Jake's idea.
It was Jake's idea for the longest time, but then one day you just came out of like the back room like, let's do it.
Jake talked me into it.
And then the Sony camera was never turned off.
Yeah, I remember
Until
that.
you broke it. Literally.
Until I broke it.
It wasn't turned off even after you broke it. We have you breaking it on camera. Its last moment in focus is captured in the Star Wars behind the scenes video, or Star Wars drones behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like did a whip zoom. You're like, and it just broke the lens.
I remember. I'm trying to remember because Ren complimented me on always doing the whip zooms, and my thought back then was like, you know, it's always funny when you crash zoom in the editing into somebody's face. I should just do it in camera and save myself some time.
So a thing that like
You didn't do it.
the thing that like I think really like anybody who's at Corridor that's been with us for a while and like you know they fit in really well and excel at what they're doing. I think they all share a common trait in that they are always thinking about you know, outside of just obviously there's work, there's lots of work, there's regular work that has to happen, but everybody's always thinking about like, how can I improve? What can I do that's new? What can I do next? What can I invent? What's something that no one's thought of yet that I can explore and try? I think, you know, anyone that's with us that's, you know, that's really making a mark for themselves has that process going on. Yeah, on top of just the regular, like being a decent editor, being good at time management, being, you know, a hard worker, all those things are obviously are necessary. But then, you know, bringing to the table that like, hey, I have an idea for this format. Let's try this. Or, hey, you know, I was thinking, you know, we could do this better. Or I read these, you know, comments here and they said, you know, what about trying like this? And it got me thinking about this. And like, that's something, Carmichael, that it was really a big part of your process. Like you were always thinking about trying new things. I mean, you know, like, for example, like, you know, you and Nick, when you guys put together like the first VFX React idea, you know, that was just a like, hey, the Sonic trailer came out. You guys are VFX artists. Why don't you talk about why people don't like it and why it looks weird? And, you know, that was just an example of, you know, of many, because like we didn't have an established format outside of just like, you know, we need to do a video 2 or 3 times a week. Like there wasn't like a standard format that each video followed. So it was always being reinvented. Now, like, you know, I guess this is a question both to Nick and Carmichael. Is this something that like you guys think is just inherent in who you are? Or is this something that you had to train yourself to do over time?
Well, I can't answer for Carmichael. I think it's more inherent in you, Carmichael, than me. at that time I was so used to trying to, just like I was getting used to the grooves, like trying to like work in your workflow, and then Carmichael would always like, one day would pass and then you'd be like, I have a bright idea, let's change everything. I'd be like, oh gosh, okay, here we go, gotta restart, gotta relearn. So, but I mean, that was for the beginning, and then eventually it just found a fluid, evolution. And there's no year of those vlogs that are the same, right? Because it was constantly changing. And then eventually we found that React format, and it was like, okay, here's the first format that actually sticks. Even that was an accident. Like finding that format wasn't something we were trying. It wasn't like intentionally like, hey, React videos do really well, let's just do that. It's because we were all going away to Texas when we were thinking about moving, and we needed something quick to shoot that was easy and didn't take like a week of pre-pro, so we could just draw on the knowledge that you guys had and that we all had, and turn that into something. And the Sonic trailer just happened to be at the perfect time. And the rest is history. But definitely the biggest shift for the channel right there.
Yeah, it was a huge shift. I can't say his name, but someone did tell me when the Sonic trailer dropped, like that was a false trailer. They had the final design for Sonic already done, and that was just another design for marketing. So that way they could say, oh yeah, we listened to the fans.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite conspiracy theories, because if it's true, it's fucking genius.
So
just so smart.
I remember the Sonic React video and I approached it the same way I generally approach all videos when I'm in the editing seat, is if I'm passively watching this, how am I experiencing it from the moment I click to whenever I leave? And that's often why I would stay like hours late or work over the weekends. It's like, I'm not feeling it. Like whatever this video is, like if I just jump in, what's my experience on the roller coaster, And that's how I approached the editing of that React video. And then it was like, we dissected the hell out of it for the second one. It was like, what order were things that happened? What did
you start with like a good clip, then a bad clip, and then the marketing clip, and
we didn't even have those concepts yet.
And then it was like, oh, it kind of worked. Okay, let's do that exactly the same.
Yeah.
And then boom, and then I was like, all right.
Peace. I'm gonna go play D&D. Yeah.
Oh man.
That's awesome.
So see, Mike, obviously the decision to leave Corridor was something that you had decided upon months and months and months before it happened. It wasn't a surprise or anything like that once it, came time for you to head out. And you made the jump from, obviously being at Corridor and working with a group of people and, having other people around you, to doing your own thing. And at least for me, something like that could be really scary. It can be really challenging. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what has been, like, how did you feel when that happened? Have there been, like, what have your moments of victory been? What have your challenges been as you've made that transition?
Okay. I mean, it was, first off, leading up to me, like, talking to you guys about me leaving, it was that moment, like, kicking in of realizing I spent so much time focusing on my craft, which is not inherently a bad thing, but I put it before everything else in my life, like everything else. And at a certain point, it started getting to me like I don't have anything else. So I am endlessly now making content for content's sake. I'm telling stories just nonstop. And it's like before I would go to sleep, I would talk about corridor content. The moment I wake up, within 5 minutes, my brain is thinking of the next corridor content that I'm working on. And I couldn't just get out of it. And that started building up. D&D kicked in, and I reconnected to something. And that led to, like, I have to tell these guys. Like, I need to completely walk away to put time into me. Whatever way that's possible, I have to figure it out. And like, if I do a hard fail on this, I was like, I always knew that our relationship was good enough that I can always come back to you guys and say, I couldn't figure this out. And knowing that, like, you guys had that love and that friendship for me did make it easier, but not any less scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I even had to talk to my dad because he was like, "You got the best job. Why are you leaving?" Like, well, I kind of need to figure stuff out for myself, and it might mean like making my own thing, even if it fails. He's like, "I don't know." Like, thanks, Dad.
I mean, there's something to be said for that. From an outside perspective, what we do looks like the best job. And you have to, sometimes it's like, you have to remind people, like, this is pretty consuming stuff. Like, you have to put a lot into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just riding one wheels and goofing around and reacting to videos all day, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the VFX artist side of VFX artists react. Like, you still have to go out there and learn how to do VFX.
Yeah.
Years and years of work.
And then you also got to, like, put the work into learning VFX, not the act of practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need to know when Ren goes on a rant, I need to be able to sit there and keep up. So that way I can question him on something that he just raced on by because he just knows the terminology in the back of his hand better than the back of his hand.
Yeah.
Sorry,
keep going.
Yeah. So once I left, I was like, okay, I have 2 months of rent. I need to either, one, find consistent work with another creator that I genuinely want to put some energy in, learn to work with a kind of like a creative friend, and like that build the D&D thing on the side and put that energy in me. Or just, which is the worst option, is hustle, gig after gig after gig after gig. I was able to get a job at Indie Mogul, and I was brought on. I was like, "Oh yeah, for your experience at Corridor, we'd love you to help with the direction of birthing Indie Mogul." I was like, "That's awesome! I love Indie Mogul. Let's do it." And 6 months later, I'm late on every delivery because all they want is an editor 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But every meeting I have like equipment upgrade ideas, setup upgrade ideas, new style branding ideas. And they're like, this isn't what we brought you on for. And I was like, I thought that was.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't sit in the back office for 9 to 5 and not do anything but look at a computer screen with no access to sunlight.
Yeah, at least in our studio there's skylights, you know.
Yeah.
Sun.
And there was always the ability to get up and record and shoot, and the other guys were in charge of doing that. So I parted ways, and I was like, all right, I'm down to 1 month savings of rent. Okay. This is Thanksgiving, last Thanksgiving.
So you made it from May to November.
Mm-hmm.
And Fables has launched, right?
Fables has already launched. Okay. We were releasing an episode once a month because I was trying to go, what if I release a full D&D episode, just poof, once at a time. Like, what's the consistency? What's the thought process? What's the feeling behind it? And then eventually we went to what we're doing now. But I'm at Thanksgiving. I have to fly to Sacramento to be with Allie's family. So I was like, all right, can't afford that. So Allie's family pays for it. And now I'm feeling like less of a provider, more of a failure, because it's like something's not working and I can't see it. On top of that, Premiere has been glitching out all my videos.
Oh God, dude,
Dobie came with you, huh?
Dobie came with me. So it was just like November was the month of learning how to breathe. December, I had probably my worst panic attack because there was 0 in my bank account.
Wow.
Um,
Was that moment just like, holy shit, this is real now? Like, I really made the jump?
Yeah, and I was like, the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep, my thought was, I'm losing this apartment. I'm not going to be able to protect Alicia. I'm not going to be able to protect the cats. And at this point, my cats are my babies. And I just started seeing myself as a failure. And I also at the same time was trying to not see myself as a failure, because I know if I said that narrative too much, I wouldn't be able to get out of that narrative. And so it's like, I wake up, fables. Like, how can I improve it? How can I make it better? How do I minimize the workflow? How do I minimize the equipment? How do I increase resolution? How do I increase quality? And it was small steps. Patreon was like sitting there able to help me pay rent, but I was like, this is money that people donated to me to put towards this content. So I was like, only on the final hour will I ever make the decision to use their money to keep a roof over my head. I was trying to be that noble. And it came down to the last minute, and I got an email. December, I was able to pay rent with help of family, and I paid them back. But January comes along. I'm still freaking out because 0's still there. But I get an email from Richard Ryan from Black Rifle Coffee. He's like, I've only met Richard Ryan that one time we did the slow-mo video with Ren. It's the only time. He emails me. He's like, hey, are you doing freelance yet? I remember you talking about you were leaving. I was like, yeah, I'm still doing freelance. I have no clients. But I didn't say that. He's like, cool, I'll get you hooked up with Logan. We have a project. We basically want to do Corridor Crew meets Peter McKinnon.
Who's we? Richard for full
Richard for Black Rifle.
Oh, okay.
And so Logan hit me up. We talked. He basically wants to make a behind-the-scenes show with the mindset of Corridor Crew, like behind the company, the work that we put into the company. What is that? And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And he's like, cool. On Friday, can you fly out to Las Vegas for SHOT Show? My first question was, what the fuck is SHOT Show? It's basically NAB, but with guns instead of camera equipment.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, my phone. Okay. hold on. My camera, it just popped up 10%. No.
Uh-oh. Plug in.
Oh no. See, Mike. No.
I don't want to say goodbye twice.
I'm on the edge of my seat for the story.
And he's like, can you fly out there? And I was like, yeah, I totally can. He's like, cool. So he keeps talking about what we're going to do there and all the traveling that's going to happen while we're there. And I'm like, okay. I'm writing down how much everything's going to cost. And I was like, I have one camera, I have one lens, I have a friend's microphone, and I have one SD card, and I took Alicia's laptop. And he goes, all right, cool. So we'll cover the flights and all your transportation, all your food. I'll see you on Friday, and I'll email you all the addresses.
Okay.
Packed
There
up,
you go.
jumped
Was this
in
like
an
a
Uber.
couple of days before?
It was a week.
Oh, a week. Okay.
And I just worked my ass off that week. I was like, if these guys can be a consistent client, I'm going to make that a thing. On top of that, Black Rifle Coffee is a veteran company, supports veterans. I come from a family of veterans. I'm one of the first boys to not join the military.
Wow. That makes sense.
And my dad loves Black Rifle Coffee too.
Did he like it before you worked with them?
Oh, Evan, the owner of Black Rifle, and I make a joke about how when I went vegan, my dad lost his pride of being my father. And then when I started working Black Rifle, I got it back.
That's gnarly and amazing.
So I got to be honest, when I heard that you were working with them, I was like, whoa, there's a disconnect there, Carmichael. Because you're known as like a very more left-sided. I mean, you're like the first person and I think the only in the studio to go vegan, right? Or is Griffin's vegetarian, but you were
he's vegetarian.
When definitely took it as a lifestyle. So I was just like, wow, okay, how's that gonna work out?
Oh, their faces were amazed. it was the best reaction.
And what an interesting first initiation to be like thrown into SHOT Show, like Vegas gun culture. Like Carmichael from LA, just like, all right, just come on out here.
Yep.
Let's see how you do.
It was what was weird was being around the guys. Growing up in a town of 200 people in Minnesota, and almost every weekend being around military people because of my dad going to base, it almost felt like home just hanging out with the guys. It was so surreal. When I remember I sat in to record the behind the scenes of them recording one of their podcast episodes in the hotel. Evan buys me a green smoothie drink. He gets one. We go up the elevator. We're talking, and we sit down. And he makes a crack about vegans because he's drinking a shitty green drink. And I go, I know, I'm one of them. And all he does is he looks up. He just smiles. And Matt Best in the back goes, wait, you're a fucking vegan? I'm like, yeah. Oh, fucking A. But what was funny is 10 minutes later, Matt Best was trying to offer me a full-time job. Because according to him, the last BTS guy wouldn't do the things I would do to get the shot. We were shooting at a gun range, and I was asking the guys who worked there, can you pull out the gun so I can get this B-roll shot? Hey, can you toss the bullets over here so I can get the shot? And he was just straight up impressed that I was putting the initiative and the work to get a good product. Even if I don't use that footage, I'm putting that work in.
Yeah, I mean, that goes miles.
You're scrubbing those floors, man. Sweeping those floors.
I was mopping those floors.
Yeah, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, and working with Logan, it's a similar relationship as like working with one of you guys. He has a creative mindset too, so we'll often just do the work all day long, and then in the evening, just banter about the direction of the video, direction of the next video, like what's the through line to the next story, what's the overall thing we're trying to do, what's interesting about it. Pretty much every night in Guatemala, him and I were drinking wine, doing that.
So you went to Guatemala with those guys. How long?
Wait,
what was that about?
Yeah, wait, what happened? So
I'm going to fill in the gap. I'm going to fill in the gap for that.
What?
So I went home. Logan wanted me to come back the next week, and we would just go to Florida for NASCAR. I couldn't make it. So I had to take that one specific week off, but I could have worked 1 week, the next week, and then the next week, all three in different
I think it was
states.
just like the Daytona 500 or something.
That's what
casual.
it was. Yeah.
It's a really casual, like little. Yeah.
It's casual. They win. Their car wins. Yeah. But
wait, the Black Rifle coffee car one.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the following week, I had to fly down to Texas, and shoot there for a week, behind the scenes on them doing a video that's in post. So I'm not going to talk about it because they haven't talked anything about it. But man, like I get on the airplane at 5 a.m. I pretty much didn't sleep that night because I was just still nervous. I have 2 months of rent in my account right now.
Hey.
I put no other money to anything else. I was like, keep a roof, nothing else. I get to Texas and then get in a car. The sun's now shining, and show up at their office. I have to pull out the camera and start shooting. And I shoot for the next 8 hours. And then I go to the ranch and I sleep at the ranch. And it was the first time I could sleep in 48 hours.
Wow. Cuddled up with the taxidermy animals.
Yeah.
Just hanging around.
Walking in that room, I was like, I'm not going to tell Alicia.
That's such a cool place.
It really blows my mind, though, that like
that place is cool, though.
But like last year, you're like, yeah, we're gonna part ways. I'm gonna do my own thing for a bit, and then suddenly it's like, right back together.
Paths intersecting.
Oh yeah. We hung out at the ranch quite a bit too. We did all that. It's like we've surprisingly shared very similar experiences.
One of us shared the same bed.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't sleep there.
Okay. Yeah, Evan is the best jokester. Like, it's funny as like he'll call for me to do something. He'll be like, "Hey, vegan," and Logan will be like, "It's Carmichael," and it's Evan plays it so straight that he's like, "What is the word Carmichael?"
I don't know that word. Not in my vocabulary.
And the moment I got to shoot at the ranch, I was like, okay, I have my foot in the door with them as a client. I'm going to keep working my ass off to keep them as a client because they're able to afford a rate that keeps me alive. And I also, at this moment, so it's before April. March was Guatemala, so it's February. At this moment, working with them, going to Texas and everything, I realized the most important thing that working with these guys right now is going to be for my mental health. If I'm a vegan and I'm extremely left on a lot of things, and I live in Los Angeles, I have an echo chamber around me.
Oh, yeah.
And if I can throw myself at an environment that is often extremely opposite of my perspective, I will be able to question my morals and ethics and chip away at them until they are the most essential to my belief. and I can know myself the best.
Not everyone would do that. Not everyone's
Yeah, it's really
just like
valuable.
willing to walk into, what could be a cauldron of opposite views of their own and just, let it burn them. But I mean, it seems like it's all in good fun. And have there been any views that since leaving the bubble, right, of LA, has working with those guys with other perspectives changed any of your perspectives?
I think when switching to veganism, a big thing is, like, as you guys know, I'm an all-in kind of person.
Yes.
Definitely.
I'm very aware of that.
It's a verb now, Carmichael Lee.
So going vegan is like saying no to everything else and like absorb and learn what is this, and then also what is this to me. And then hanging around those guys, and they often raised questions that I couldn't answer. And so I got to sit on those questions that no one else around me would ask that question. And it reminds me that I'm a vegan who loves guns.
Not every day. I mean, that's...
I was like, no, these are my trees. Get the fuck away.
Get away from my trees.
Get away from my grass.
Don't touch my tomatoes.
And it's understanding, like, the veganism is not something that's perfect for every individual person, and you can't admit that when you start going down that road, because you have to, if you're trying to go down something what you think is a better thing for you, you kind of have to follow it with faith. And then once you start getting a little bit of a comfort bubble, that's where you're like, okay, I've gone pretty far. What about is this? What can I poke holes in that I can question? And often, especially in Guatemala, I would bring up things that Evan would ask. He would talk about wool, which is not an animal's skin. It's, their hair. And I mentioned, well, it depends on where you get it. Like, I have to do the thought process of, like, only certain farms take care of their animals better than others, and you need to support those farmers. And if it comes from a Murillo sheep, for example, you don't want the muling. And a Murillo sheep, for example, is a domesticated sheep, so it just keeps growing its wool, not like a wild sheep that sheds. And if a person doesn't give them a haircut, they can die.
Holy moly! They can cook. Do they just?
They heat up. They sweat. They suffocate. And their sweat actually attracts a specific type of fly that's native in Australia that kills them. And so to prevent sheep from dying from that fly, you have to mule them, which is you lasso them up and cut the skin off the back of their hind legs. And it's like,
what the heck?
And it's hard because in the vegan community, it's like, no, all wool is bad. I was like, okay, so we need to prevent the wool being worn by people. Yeah. Okay, why not? I actually asked the question, why not eradicate sheep? You would stop cruelty by taking them out. Well, that's not ethical. Okay, so what is? The most ethical thing is to support farmers who are doing it more ethically than others, who take care and love their animals, because they're domesticated animals. They rely on us. And I have a bunch of other examples like that Evan and I had long conversations about that he never knew about.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting stuff. I mean, my experience with the Black Rifle Coffee guys, I mean, outside of this like boundless drive that like leaves me exhausted, and I thought I had some decent drive. Like, Jake put it pretty well. It's like if you approach them with the caricature of like, the Texas like guy that loves his guns and his meat, like you'll apply stereotypes to them that aren't true, because you'll also end up, I mean, upon meeting the guys, you'll find that they are some of the most like tolerant and accepting guys
Yeah.
and they just don't they don't make a point of trying to censor themselves. And so that throws you off at first, but then you realize that they don't really have anything to censor, because there's nothing in them that's like, awkwardly judgmental or harsh or cruel, because they're not those kind of people.
Or regrettable.
Yeah. So they're really fascinating guys, and they're really cool guys too that that I've met, that I'm friends with, obviously a bunch of them as well. Yeah, so it's a really good crew, and I'm happy that they have the success that they have, and that they've found the niche and the community that they have, because they seem like they've attracted a bunch of other guys who are kind of in the same mindset together to execute on this vision that they have, which is great. So you were saying though, so you went to Guatemala, you did the SHOT Show in Vegas. Are you still working with them?
Part-time, just like a freelance client.
Okay.
So quick SHOT Show. Imagine going to NAB and there are, how everyone's always filming everything because everyone's got to put out their NAB video.
Right.
Of course.
There's no such thing at SHOT Show.
Nobody's filming?
There was 2 other freelance videographers, and I know that there were only 2 because I could never find one, and those 2 found me and go, "Are you Carmichael?"
Oh man.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
As Logan and Evan put it, it's like, yeah, YouTube and online video platforms are anti-right. They're anti-gun.
Mm-hmm.
It leads to violence. And so Black Rifle can sit like just on the line because they're not a gun company. They're a coffee company.
Yeah.
And that was an insane experience because so many people were uncomfortable of a cameraman near them.
Really?
And then you also have people who didn't understand, like, oh, someone's taking a picture or video is recording. Whereas NABs, you'd have plenty of people who would kind of stop and just wait for a second.
Yeah.
And that kind of pulls you out of LA too. It's like, these are normal people. They're not gearheads. They're not camera people. They're not Hollywood.
Yeah.
Just gun salesman with an honest product.
An honest gun.
Yeah.
But okay. So I do not want. This is an opening in my mind as a video creator. I did not expect. Do we all remember Street Meat Guy?
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Wait, was he at SHOT Show? Don't tell me he was at SHOT Show.
He was not at SHOT Show.
Okay.
Oh my god.
But Black Rifle Coffee's got their own Street Meat Guy.
Oh really?
Yes. And it dawned on me. I don't know why it didn't dawn on me before. It's like every tribe, every community online has the hardest of hardcore fans that's all they want to breathe. And it humbled me even more being a vegan at SHOT Show.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine those guys have a lot of fans at SHOT Show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Crazy amount.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the biggest like celebrities when it comes to that space. I mean, like the only other people are like what's it? The guy from Demolition Ranch.
Yeah.
He's like the closest other person in that space.
Yeah, I think I shot a terabyte of footage in that week.
Wow.
All HD at 120 frames per second.
120 frames per second.
Yeah, so
no, you said it to high frame it because when you're at SHOT Show, you never know when a gun's gonna go off.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure it's in slow motion.
So do we all remember why I was like, hey, we should switch to 60 frames per second?
Yeah, in case you ever wanted to do slow motion.
Yeah, so my Sony camera can record audio at HD 120 frames per second.
Okay.
So I just shoot at HD 120. It's
Wow.
and it's 100
Screw it.
megabits per second.
Do you edit
Really?
in a different sequence setting, or do you
I just edit at 30 frames per second,
Yeah, okay.
and then I slow it down all the way down to 25%.
All my footage is slow.
That's actually pretty cool. Man, technology.
Yeah.
God, love it.
And then Guatemala, I shot almost 2 terabytes. I had to use my 1 terabyte SD card as a half of a backup, so I would never
Whoa.
delete footage off of it.
What were you
Nice.
guys doing in Guatemala? Like, what were you covering while you were there?
So the first couple days was footage, just B-roll and footage. So we went to different coffee farms,
Oh, okay.
learning the process from coffee getting from the field to the cup kind of stuff.
Wow.
It's also the first time I've been in a third world country as an adult.
Wow. What was that like?
Hey man, they're so poor. The pickers are so poor that they have to be vegan. That's how it was worded to me. They're lucky if they get 5,000 a year in US.
Wow. Wow.
That'll shake your boots.
And
Yeah.
is this, are these farmers that you're describing, is that where a lot of the coffee that we drink comes from? Like, is this like the coffee capital of the world or something, or is it a more niche area?
Guatemala, I believe, always has been exporting, and they're just now getting into the system of like trying to regain their coffee culture, because they would always leave the shitty coffee for themselves and sell the good stuff. And now they're trying to keep some of the good stuff to be part of that culture.
Yeah.
But yet, I think I have the timeline open. I think our shepherd, Freddie, he said more than 60% of the coffee is what you guys end up getting in your cup. And the process is nuts. Like, there are major companies in the industry that buy the leftover stuff in bulk so they can sell big containers of coffee for high profit but low cost. And they're the coffee that they were going to throw out. And then learning about that whole side of the industry too.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then learning cupping blew my mind.
What's cupping?
What is that?
So you guys know what wine tasting is.
Yeah.
So cupping is that for coffee.
You just have a little sip?
They had a cup over, I think it was almost like 80 different tastes of coffee in a single day.
Okay, wait. How do you even distinguish that flavor profile? Like after 20 cups of coffee, wouldn't it just all turn into the same
So
thing?
you have to meet Edwin, who has a 24 karat gold tasting spoon for coffie.
Oh my gosh. Only gold.
He's certified as like a coffee taster.
He's the main guy at Black Rifle.
No, that's Evan. Edwin is their taster.
Okay, so
that's what I'm saying. But he works. Yeah, I think I may have met him before, because they have a crazy laboratory in the background where they have.
He's
all
a
these,
super chill dude.
Yeah, they like, I remember when we were filming our commercial last year, I went back there. I was like, hey, is there like just like a basic coffee carafe kind of coffee a Mr. Coffee kind of thing? And he's like, oh yeah, we keep a couple in the back. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. And then he explains also further, it's like, yeah, we try and also always get the worst coffee makers you can possibly buy, like the Mr. Coffee drip coffee ones, because we want to know how like the average person is going to consume this coffee, and want to see what it's going to be like when you just make it poorly, so to speak, when you're not doing the pour over method and all that stuff. Yeah.
That's the same principle with like our sound mixing and our color grading.
Or looking at the thumbnail very small.
Or it's like, how does the audio sound like through phone speaker? There it is.
Yeah, you got to view it through the lens of your consumer, But
yeah,
Guatemala was wild.
So you're saying like people there? Would you say on average people are vegan, like, or even if it's not like I'm vegan, they're just eating
like,
plant-based foods?
No, like pickers.
Pickers. And okay.
Pickers are
just the
lucky to
pickers.
afford meat.
I see.
Like when you go to Skid Row, like imagine being stuck in Skid Row and a full-time job.
Yeah.
And your kids have to work with you.
Wow, so there's whole families.
There's whole families. Like one of the farms, we had to take a helicopter for 45 minutes just to get to one of these farms. And they support, I think it was 300 families. And then on picking season, they have up to like 6,000 employees.
Wow.
And then like if you're not going up the mountain to hand pick all the cherries, put it in a bag and carry it down the mountain, and you have to do that about like 5 times. Each bag's 150 pounds.
Cherries is that young coffee or
no?
What?
So coffee beans are inside a cherry.
Right. It's like the red berry looking thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're not
That's what
doing
they're
that,
picking.
you can go cut grass with a short machete.
Interesting.
Because they don't have lawnmowers. So you just go.
Is the coffee industry, it seems like that's a major industry. Is it regulated? Do you know? Like, are there laws in place to protect people, or is it just kind of Wild West, British colonialism, plantation?
So it's both. There's a quote in the video. I don't want to say that quote because it's such a good quote.
You have to watch the video.
You have to watch the video, and it's still being worked on. There's regulations to an extent because Guatemala terrain is full of mountains where the coffees are grown. So you can't have like in Brazil, the lands are more flat. So you can have machinery work there. You can't do that. So you need people who can do this labor for low cost. Because if you wanted, if everyone in the U.S. was willing to pay like $1 to $2 more for their coffee, you could guarantee clean water for pickers.
That's it. Just $1 to $2 more.
$1 to $2 more per bag. If this is going off my memory, we're talking to Evan. The math is based on because it was like in the 70s, a cup of coffee was like 50 cents, right? So to consider that with fair trade, like what you would want to pay people, and inflation, Americans should be minimum buying like $30 bags of coffee.
Interesting.
To provide like back to the farms. And a big concern when we're in a room was like, why is the cost of coffee not skyrocketing right now? Like coffee is in the highest demand and it's like it costs more to buy coffee right now, but it costs less to make it. And yet farmers are still not getting enough. So that whole week was an experience beyond I've ever had as an adult.
I can, for many factors, but that's insane, man. How was like kind of zoning in more on personal like struggle, I guess. How was traveling there as someone with a dietary restriction? Because dude, I mean, I went to Spain last year with my girlfriend she's not vegan. She just doesn't eat like meat. And that was hard traveling. So how was being a vegan in, South America, a third world country?
Well, I told Alicia while I was there, it's like, it's both easy and hard. Because it's hard because I can just quit. I can just cheat. There's so much, like I could just do it and be easier because I'm putting so much mental energy in shooting and so much work put into that while traveling through Guatemala. Like I would rather not put the energy into my diet. I would rather just eat something right now.
If you just like slipped a little bit of carnitas in, you'd probably suffer for that, right? Like that would make you physically sick though if you did cheat.
I'd get a tummy ache, which would then mess with my performance. But it's also easy because I can just ask the waiter, what do you have that's vegetarian? And then can we just remove a few things?
And they were pretty accommodating.
Oh yeah. Super.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I ate a whole pizza because I found out their crust wasn't made with egg. I was like, I'll take it. And then someone there was like, being a vegan, you don't eat a lot of meat, but you sure do eat a shit ton of food. Like, yeah.
Wow. They were surprised by the amount that you were eating?
Yeah.
I
would in a single sitting, I would eat 2 to 3 full meals.
Gotcha. Because for ex-soldiers, I think that they'd also be eating a lot. Keep the muscle mass up.
Meat in the idea of like density of calories and protein and fats, like it's a superfood. Like humans found a superfood, we cooked it, and we progressed past other animals. Plants, you just gotta get a large combination of variety and do that superfood on your own.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then there was the hot tub.
What? Oh, is this the D&D game?
This is the D&D game.
Okay. I heard a tale of it.
What's the hot tub story?
So we're all sitting in a hot tub in Guatemala on the edge of a volcanic lake.
Okay.
Since starting to work with Logan can't understand D&D.
Okay.
And eventually Evan is in on this, and he's like, what is this? I don't understand this. And to the point where he's asking every owner of Black Rifle, like, do you know what D&D is? Have you ever played? What is this? What is this? And we're all in the hot tub, and it comes down to, can you just show us what D&D is?
Okay.
I'm sitting with Evan, Logan, the director of coffee, Edwin, and Marty, who's their journalist. We're all just sitting in a hot tub in Guatemala, and then it starts to rain. So we put the umbrella up, and we're sitting in the hot tub while raining, and we're playing D&D.
That sounds pretty freaking chill.
That sounds really cool.
And no dice. I didn't think about using an app.
No dice? How do you do that?
No.
Random numbers.
Random
numbers.
So we had
give me a
somebody
random
not
number.
playing.
5. Okay.
And I would just say a random number between 1 and 20. And we played D&D, and they got out of it took them 2 hours to get out of a tavern and to a village.
Why would it? What? 2 hours just drinking?
Oh yeah, they were also drinking like 10, 12, 15 beers each.
In
the hot tub in real life.
Hot tub. So
trying to
in game, it's like more like 40 or so.
Yeah. And then
so you like
by the end of the game, Evan was so fascinated that he's like, put together a game for us so we can shoot something. And I was like, wow. All right, Black Rifle Coffee does D&D. I'll prep.
That's hilarious.
When can we look forward to that?
No, not anytime soon.
just I already did one that was like a SEAL, like a Black Hawk Down style one. Mm-hmm. You could just that would be perfect for them.
Sounds
just
amazing.
You're behind enemy lines. You got to extract these hostages from like a tavern, and there's orcs everywhere.
Yeah. It's not far off what I have.
Yeah.
I'm leaning a little bit more to Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty cool too.
So it seems like I got to ask, as we're on the topic of D&D. So, your channel Fables, you've been trying different things, been exploring it. Looking at it now, where are you going to go with it? What's your current plans with it?
I want the current show that's on there, Fables of Refuge, where Jarrett DMs. I want that to be a live show. Multicam live. I get to sit and play. I get to be a player. And what I'm shooting tomorrow with Alicia is a one-on-one where I DM. And my idea for that is to do a very spicy, heavy edited and well designed and something very like cinematic.
Interesting.
And I'm gonna play with that. The whole idea of the channel is to be a canvas for me to play D&D, but also for me to tinker with filmmaking at the same time. That is its primary purpose in my eyes. It's like, okay, so you can't just play D&D. You have to lean more to like, hey guys, we're doing a video. Okay, so let's not do these things. Okay, so that changes playing Dungeons and Dragons. How does that feel as a creator? How does that feel as a player? How does that feel as the audience? Often I'll sit there and look at it and go, that's not working for me. That's a little cringy. But then I'll get a comment of someone saying, I love it. This is great. I was like, this made someone's day better.
Yeah.
So I'm on a path. I'm on a path of making something that people like, and it's something that connects me to my childhood of fantasy and medieval. And then I also have to be realistic. It's like that channel doesn't make the numbers to be a paying job, and I have to believe that if it will, it won't be within the first 3-4 years. Looking at like the growth of the corridor channels, looking at the growth of other channels like minimalist channels that I follow, like there's years of patience that have to go into just like, you start with putting your idea out there and you slowly have to change your raw idea to something that's just a little bit more refined for people to digest consistently.
Yeah.
Definitely, man. Got to make the compromise with yourself, versus what people want to watch versus what you want to do.
Yeah.
It seems like you started doing smaller or shorter episodes to try to make it more digestible.
No, so we play for about 3 hours a game, and we take a break in the middle, and we just release 2 parts of that.
Okay.
So we just release one on Tuesday, one on Thursday. Sit down and record once. You got 2 uploads. I tried releasing them even shorter, and for the style that this specific game goes, you kind of just want to sit there and digest it like a podcast.
Sure.
Where if it's something that's more like heavy edited, more cinematic, something like the old Node D&D shows, you can cut that in far smaller bites.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like if you keep it raw, you just need to keep everything in, like can't start being choosy.
Yeah. So, see, Mike, we're reaching the end of our time here together for this podcast. I want to say so far, like your story of like the, what happened from leaving Corridor to trying to make it work, to the stress and the panic, to, working with Black Rifle. Like that was fascinating. Like I was completely engrossed, like listening. I was transported to another world.
I might be cut out to be a dungeon master after all.
Yeah. But that was really cool. And I really appreciate you sharing that and like sharing your vulnerabilities as well as your successes, which I think is something that you've always been.
I learned that from you guys at Corridor. Like it's when I started shooting BTS for you guys, it was just like, capture what they're doing, but make it better. And then the vlog was where my brain started like freaking out and cracking and breaking. And it's like, how do I make this work? It doesn't make sense. And it's like, oh, it's, you have to open up. you just have to let the thing happen, and you have to film it, and then you have to think about it while it's happening, while not thinking about while it's happening. You just have to be humble that it's happening. And it's so surreal. And it just goes into like what I like to do, which is make content, whether it gets the numbers or not. What I like to do is make something that people can just enjoy. And to do that, you have to think of those audience members and think what they would think while you're making it. And you can't judge it. You can't like be selfish about it. And I think during like that dark mental transition of me leaving Corridor, that was infesting my relationship with the content, and I could see often it would affect how I communicate with you guys, and I didn't want that either. And I knew that was not a problem in the sense of like I'm going to get fired, but it's like it's a problem because it shouldn't be. That's not okay. It's not morally or ethically okay. Like I'm trying to I have to make something that makes people feel better. It can't start from a dark place. And I'm just constantly trying to be that. Like in 60 years, look back, was I able to be better, to make better?
Yeah, I mean, those are words of wisdom, man. Those are good philosophies to live by and things to pursue. It's hard to do it, but I think, in the moment, it can be a big struggle when you set out to do your own thing and you try to figure out how to make it work. But I mean, I'm saying this a bit from a position of privilege in that, Corridor has been successful. But even if it wasn't, and, even those times where it wasn't, and, looking back in the day, still going out and doing your own thing is one of those things, like you look back at it, it's something that you pretty much never regret. It's like they do that study, like, old people, when asked, what did they value more in their life, their experiences or or what do they value spending their money more on, expensive items or expensive experiences, aka traveling. And the answer is always experiences. Items just don't have the same thing as, emotions and memories and things that make you grow. And so, when you set out to do your own thing, like, even if it is a struggle and even if it is hard and the money isn't always there, I think it's one of those things that, like, people survive, you make your way through it. And you look back at it years down the line, it makes you a better person when you've pursued things like that. It's being able to decide to do something of your own volition is such a valuable thing to be able to do. And so few people still do that. Like, when you're talking about when you're working at Imperium Games and you want to go film Mordor, and they're like, well, you won't have a job when you come back. You're like, that's cool. See ya. Like, if more people were willing to do that, you would be in a world where people wouldn't be taken advantage of as much, because you have to have that sense of righteousness for yourself and doing right by yourself first, and being your own person.
Also,
so, yeah,
having the ability to empathize with who you work with. I think, like, one of the benefits of, like, while working on Fables and working with a client, whether it's Black Rifle or someone else, is if you're trying to make a YouTube channel, it's like, I know what you're going through. Like, I know the thoughts that are going through your head. I know the stress that's going through your head. I know what numbers you're looking at that make you feel good and bad. Like, level with me, talk with me, and let's collaborate as people to make something that your audience, your community wants to see.
Yeah.
Wise words.
Also, I think it's season 3 of the vlogs where Nick and I hit a stride where Nick would make videos mostly with Jake, where it's just like the antic crazy video with like a cinematic storyline. And then I would just focus on this like weird personal thing that's happening in the office. So the audience were getting crazy, gentle, crazy, gentle.
Sometimes in the same video too. We'd have the
Yeah.
AB stories for years there.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So obviously it goes without saying that anybody listening to this podcast should go check out, Fables. Obviously there'll be links on the screen and in the description and all that kind of stuff. But, I think people should go check out your Patreon as well, because when you have a small dedicated audience, you got to have more than just ad revenue to make it happen. And you can totally make it happen with a small audience, but it requires that audience to be willing to support you. I mean, it's something we've talked about on this podcast before, as, we launch our corridor site as well.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. I mean, it's still in beta, so,
well,
I'll save that congrats for when it's like officially launched.
When leaving corridor, I was also like kind of thinking about something similar, because I was looking at College's Humor's Dropout.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, so like I need Patreon to make this thing even think about happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't rely on the views. You can't rely on the ad revenue. Like, it's, especially if you're trying to start something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You shouldn't start something from that perspective. It's not going to turn out well.
Yeah.
So when I started, I owned none of the equipment that I used to film. It was all borrowing. Now I still only own 75% of it.
Yeah, it's better than 0%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really easy to forget, like, when you're on YouTube and you're looking at like the big names and like 5 million views per video, I'm like, man, that's a lot of views. I'm only getting like a couple thousand. It's like 1,000 people is a lot of people. Yeah.
Like,
especially
if
if they're
you've
like
been in a room with 1,000 people, when you have, it's very small amount of times, and they're never having their attention pointed at one thing. Hardly.
Yeah, being on a stage in front of 1,000 people and commanding their attention for an hour is crazy. But yet people are like, it doesn't register like that when you do a podcast and 1,000 people listen to it, or you do like a live game and 1,000 people watch it. It's like, it's not a million. It's like, that's 1,000 people. You're on stage in front of 1,000 people. Like, that's a lot.
That was,
I'm nervous.
When I moved, because of all the hype of me moving to Fables, the first 5 videos, like 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 views. I'm like, this is going to go away so fast once they see how broke I really am. And it did. They just went whoosh, but now it's settled. Roughly 1,000. I get roughly 1,000 views per video I upload. It's 1,000 eyeballs that like the thing I create. That's so humbling.
And that's great.
And then after a couple months of it, I learned the math of it, and I changed my Patreon tiers. And so each tier says how many views you would actually support.
Nice. Smart. Yeah. Well, see, Mike, this is great. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. We'll have to do another one at some point here. But it was really nice catching up here and like hearing your stories and your tales, your fables, fables of freelance. Yeah. But this is super cool. Is there anything else you'd want to say to people, or I guess ask them to check out or anything like that?
I mean, I'd just be humble if people check out Fables. I know it's not Node D&D. Sorry, I can't afford the minis. But like, I'd just be humble if you check that out. I'm not going to ask people to sign up for Patreon or join the channel. Not right now. I don't feel like that's a good idea as much as I would want to.
Hey, go do that, please. Support him. Support the nicest dude.
I think knowing the general demographic of the Corridor fan base, I have to, like, your time's short. I started a Corridor in my mid-20s. I'm 30, just turned 30.
Hey,
club.
My birthday is the same day as Corridor.
What?
And it, like, if you want to make something, go do it. Like, Sam, you just prove to any filmmaker out there they have no excuse. Like, I know, like, talking about like shoot on your phone. Like, I'm always like, it doesn't look right unless you get the close up or something like that. But like, if you want to make something, you want to put your idea out there, do it. If you don't feel good about something that you're doing, like, do the work to figure out how to stop doing that so you can put the energy into something that you need to put energy into. And if you have to, like, also love everyone you work with. Like, don't burn bridges.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not going to turn out great when you're 60.
Yeah. I mean, I think you demonstrated just how small the video world is. I mean,
Yeah,
the world in
yeah.
general is small. Like the fact that you're at SHOT Show and the other two guys like Carmichael, or the fact that Richard Ryan calls you up, it's like, it's not a big world out there.
Yep.
No. Yeah, like, it's so mind-blowing that our parents were so right, that they're like, you don't know anything. But like, you know a lot when you're young. You do know a lot because you have your own experiences, your own paths, but you don't have the perspective that you get by just starting over.
Yeah, it gives you empathy. I think it's hard to have empathy when you aren't experienced. Yeah.
Deep.
Cool.
Super deep.
All right. I think that's a perfect
Subscribe.
walk off into the sunset. Subscribe.
What? I can't even do the Sam scream anymore.
You never had to.
Fun fact: most of the subscribe screams that I ever put in was actually Nick testing it, because his was short enough to fit the curses more than Sam's.
Dude, I remember people got so frustrated thinking we were trying to give them like subliminal advertising. Like, they're just sneaking in little like subscribe words, like trying to trick people into subscribing and hypnotize us. It's like, it's a joke, guys.
Yeah, we're just joking.
Just kidding around.
I mean, if it works, whatever,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Subscribe.
I miss so many things that I used to create with you guys, but one of the things that I do like cry laughing over is Mario Kart and Jake trying to build something.
Such a good video. Man, like, with this point, it's
Sad.
so surreal. Just before we end, it's so surreal. Like, being able to look, I mean, for all of us, right? Being able to look back at the last 5 years and literally have a vlog that catalogs almost everything of your day to day, right? I mean, even though it's kind of like curated and, presented, it's very like, I'll look back at vlogs that I haven't seen for years, man. And it feels like it was just yesterday, but at the same time, it is super trippy because things, even though they're the same, they're very different, And,
it feels like we only started only 3 years ago, but it's been 5.
Yeah.
Those videos are my memories. Like, when I watch those, I'm like,
right.
that's all I remember.
Yeah. But at the same time, you can like remember like what went into making each one, like it's just it's a vault, man. That's a vault. And I sometimes, like, when I'm looking for B-roll for like a recent video, I'll just go down, you'll get stuck in the recommended bar, like, oh yeah, I remember that one. Man, good times.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
guys.
All right.
Well, till next time.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening and for checking out the podcast. See, Mike, it was a pleasure having you on. You are as well spoken as I've always remembered you to be.
Oh man, I gotta really work on that.
Cool. And I guess, we already said it, but go check out Carmichael's channel. I will tell you to go support him on Patreon if you're into it. But if only if you're into his stuff. I think that's important to say. Like, even for Corridor. Yes.
And you can afford it. If you can't afford it, don't feel bad. Watch the videos then.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you everybody for listening. And yeah, we'll see everyone in the next Corridor cast.
That's good.
So long, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye, Carmichael.
Again.